After weeks of uncertainty about how the United States and its international allies would deal with the increasingly bold and aggressive threat of ISIS in the Middle East, we now have a coalition, a core coalition of 10 states who say that they have some plan that's somewhat ill-defined at this point about how they're going to take down ISIS, or at the very least deconstruct it, using their language. Here is the president talking about that coalition.
There was unanimity over the last 2 days that ISIL poses a significant threat to NATO members. And there was a recognition that we have to take action. You can't contain an organization that is running roughshod through that much territory, causing that much havoc, displacing that many people, killing that many innocents, enslaving that many women. The goal has to be to dismantle them.
And so that is what they plan to do. As we said, there are 10 members of the core coalition at this point. They include the US, Britain, France, Germany, Canada, Australia, Turkey, Italy, Poland, and Denmark. But significantly, the group does not include any Arab nation and only one of Iraq's 6 neighbors, obviously limiting its ability to sort of directly influence what is going on in that region, aside from the US's ability to project force there.
Not surprisingly, after their airstrikes last week or 2 weeks ago on Libya, the United Arab Emirates has said, we're on board, let us know what you need. Mm-hmm. And then significantly today, of course, there was some evidence from the BBC and CNN that there is some cooperation happening between the United States and Iran, which on a show you weren't here, that Wes and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, that does ISIL, I guess that's what we're going with, or at least that's what the administration is going with, does the Islamic States, does their growth open the door to an ability on some level for the United States and Iran to work together, and that may have happened.
Well, that would be an excellent silver lining, you know, if we can get a deal with Iran and get some sort of decent negotiations and deals going with them. Because of our joint enemy. You want to talk about an ironic twist there.
Except that if you did any kind of formal cooperation with Iran, then you're going to exacerbate the Sunni-Shia split, because really this all came about. It's not just Islam that created this situation. What created the situation was that Sunnis were discriminated against for the past 5 or 6 years in Iraq.
That's right. So that leads to my skepticism about 2 things. One, that we're going to be effective. They swear up and down that the red line, which I think you have there, John, is that they're not going to have boots on the ground under any circumstance.
Dude, I hate that expression, boots on the ground. I'm so sick of hearing that in everything.
How come?
First of all, we already have people there.
Yeah. But to be fair, they're not wearing boots.
They're wearing sneakers.
Or slippers, I hear.
Yeah, Crocs in some cases.
So
Crocs on the ground.
Aquatic assault.
It's shorthand to say, you know what? Probably none of our people are going to get killed. But if you have jets flying over, dropping bombs on people, that's war. It's not just if you have a boot on the ground that you have war.
See, that's a really interesting point, because that all of a sudden we now have a new definition of war, which is enough people on the ground, because we already have 850 people on the ground,
well,
right?
That's not counting the 350 who are headed over there. We're going to go well over 1,000.
So we're going to be over 1,000. We're bombing the living crap out of them, but none of that counts until some threshold of number of actual boots, on the actual ground.
5,000 on the ground at the same moment, I believe it is.
No, but we want to leave 10,000 behind, and we're going to in Afghanistan, and we say that doesn't count.
Hold on, 10,000 boots, is that 5,000 soldiers, or are we counting one soldier as a boot?
Well, considering the prevalence of IEDs, a lot of them amputees, and so they only count for half.
So just to finish that thought, if you don't have soldiers on the ground, you can bomb them all day long. I don't think it's going to work, right? And it might in some ways fire people up. Right? It's because once you start dropping bombs, you're going to start hitting civilians. Yeah. And once you start hitting civilians, you start losing the population.
Not just that, bombing's largely ineffective to produce the results you want. I mean, if you look back at NATO's bombing of the former Yugoslavia during the Kosovo conflict, they found that something like 80 to 90% of the strikes missed their targets.
Wow.
They thought they were blowing up all these Serb armored vehicles, and they weren't. They were just dummy vehicles. that were put out there for camouflage.
And now ISIS has changed their tactics entirely. So they used to parade around with in the SUVs and the things with the machine guns on the back and stuff. They're all down now. They're not doing that at all. They've melted into the population, so it's harder to see them from the sky. These guys are no dummies. And another scary turn here is they just went into Lebanon. Let's just mix it up a little bit. We're having fun in Iraq and Syria. Boom, let's go into Lebanon. Yeah. They go across the border, they behead somebody, right? And so I don't think we're going to be able to contain him. And then we say now he's got 3 Ds. What was it? Destroy and
dismantle.
Dismantle was
degrade.
Today. Degrade, destroy, and dismantle, and decay. And deliver. Decimate.
Decimating would be good. That would be a start.
You only want 3 PowerPoints.
As Wes was alluding to, like, it seems ridiculous to talk about the boots on the ground symbolize war when we've conducted well over 100 airstrikes. It's not like one day they flew in a couple of planes to help out the Yazidis. This has been quite a number of airstrikes. In terms of the long-term strategy that the core coalition is apparently going to be engaged in, David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the UK, said it's a combination of intelligent politics, diplomatic pressure, long-term engagement, a comprehensive plan, as well as the potential for military or other aggressive action. And other high-placed political players in that coalition have said that a lot of it is going to be trying to freeze out their assets, put economic pressure on ISIL as well, make it harder for them to fundraise internationally.
But they do have oil, and people will buy oil. So they will smuggle it, et cetera, because they've now captured places that have some degree of oil in them. They have some degree of cash because of the banks that they captured. So this leads to my second bit of skepticism here, which is that let's say we win. God knows what that means, right? And we degrade, we destroy, we
dismantle, degrade, destroy,
right.
Yeah.
Degrade. I'm with you. It's so funny. Like, what are we gonna do? Give them a dirty sketch?
Yeah.
That's the 4th D. And then for al-Baghdadi, boom.
Yeah. Photoshop nude photos of them, release them online.
Boom. Okay. So anyway. Okay, let's say we do it, and then we've got a huge hole there. Okay, now the Shia will then be more powerful, which then they might use to degrade and do all the things to the Sunnis in Iraq, as they were doing the last 5 or 6 years. And then Assad gets more powerful. He's the dictator. He stays in power in Syria. And then what happens? I mean, it's endless. It's literally endless. We're going to fight and fight and fight
until the next bloodthirsty guy takes over and just
wipes them
out.
Yeah.
And I think
so why shouldn't we be that bloodthirsty guy?
Well,
yeah,
no, here's the thing. Why should we be? Why should we be that bloodthirsty?
That's a good point.
The real threat from ISIL is all the Westerners fighting that can come back. However, if we to look at our UN obligations, there's clearly genocide being committed over there.
Yeah.
So really, every member state in the United Nations should be involved in this.
By the way, in terms of, I mean, every week it seems like we talk a little bit about where they might spread to next, and there is some early information coming from a Reuters interview with an anonymous member of Ansar Beit al-Makdi, which is one of the leading militant groups in Egypt right now that's fighting against their government, saying that they are now communicating online with ISIS. They're receiving information about how to conduct their operations and things like that. And so at least in terms of communication and sort of support in that way, ISIS has now moved into Egypt as well.
No, this is scary stuff, man. Once I saw they crossed the Lebanese border, and they have support now within Saudi Arabia because of the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia who started this mess in the first place on ideological grounds.
I totally agree with that.
Right.
Totally agree with that.
So we have got an international disaster on our hands.
A crisis.
Literally, right? And in this case, I think the bombings might not really help. I mean, I think, look, they help in the short run. That's why I was in favor of the bombings on Mount Sinjar to help rescue the Yazidi. It had a very specific, limited goal. It achieved that goal. It saved those people from genocide, okay? Now, once you get beyond that, now we've done 100 bombings. I don't think that's the right way to go. Well, because we're going to bomb them. Assad's going to get more powerful in Syria.
The problem so far in Egypt predominantly is that the Egyptian army is not willing to stand up to them. They still, by all accounts, outnumber them, and they are very well armed as a combination of both the military equipment that they had previously, the Iraqi army, and stuff that we had left behind. It's that they're not fighting them. It's that they're scared of them. They're worried about what might happen if they're in that town when ISIS takes over. But now that they have the U.S. being willing to fight back, it makes it a little bit easier to see them not as this all-powerful behemoth that can't be stopped, and now it's someone that's been punched right in the nose by the U.S. Maybe that could inspire Egyptian troops to actually stand up to them the next time.
Iraqi troops.
Iraqi
You keep
troops.
saying
What am I
Egyptian.
saying?
You keep saying
Yeah.
Egyptian
Iraqi,
troops, yeah.
sorry.
No, the Egyptians, believe me, they'll stand up.
Yeah, move them up. No, but the
Egyptian
Iraqi troops,
military is
that's what I'm
pretty
saying. It
serious.
could be a morale booster that allows them to actually fight their own war, which they probably, if it was some sort of pitched battle between the two, they could probably win. They haven't been willing to engage in it. They might once they see the U.S. supporting them and other countries.
So finally, we come back to this incredibly ironic spot where we're now kind of rooting for people like General Sisi in Egypt, who is basically a strongman. You can call him a couple of different words.
Mass murder would be another.
And another
word.
D word is dictator. In essence, that's basically what he is, because Muslim Brotherhood won the election and he just got rid of them and won't let them run in any further elections. So, but now we're relieved, we're so relieved at least General Sisi has shored up Egypt, right, with his military. So what we're rooting for is pre-Arab Spring, when we now almost rooting for democracy. Yeah, we didn't really mean that. Let's bring back the dictators.
Right, I mean, bring back the dictators, bring back literally the dictator in Iraq. Bring back Saddam Hussein.
Oh, that somebody's gonna say it.
Yeah.
That's such a, I swear to God, mark my words here.
Where is that guy now?
At some point, I don't mean a liberal, I don't mean it, because it's gonna be a neocon who's gonna be like, we need a strong man.
Right.
There's somebody like Saddam Hussein, I'm gonna be like, oh,
But
for
like-
Christ's sake.
But like a strong man, but a Sunni to be in charge, exactly. Right, and,
if only we could have a strong man Sunni back in Iraq.
Iran supreme leaders approved cooperation with the U.S. as part of the fight against Islamic State. Ayatollah Khamenei has authorized his top commander to coordinate military operations with the U.S., Iraqi, and Kurdish forces, and that's from the BBC. So that's encouraging. And Wes, is that information public? The thing you told me that we already had a plane land there?
Yeah, no, it's been on the news.
Yeah,
but that
Okay.
was an accident.
I got it, but nonetheless, but an accident that could never have happened. That wouldn't have happened 2 months ago.
Might have happened 2 months ago.
Wouldn't have happened 2 years ago. Give me something.
20 years ago, it wouldn't have happened.
200 years ago would not have happened.
No way it would have happened.
And that was a U.S. plane landing with U.S. troops in Tehran, but it was
I don't know if it was troops.
Oh, okay. Well,
It could have
American.
been advisors.
Okay, sorry.
There's one,
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, were they?
one thing is for sure, they were not wearing boots.
They were not wearing boots.